Okay, to start with,
Chcela by som vám na úvod povedať,
I would like to share
o
with
čo
you what we
približne
are going to
nám
talk about
pôjde
today,
a tie
and then what
otázky
kind
si
of
položíme, na
questions
ktoré
we're
budeme
going
chcieť
to,
odpovedať.
or we want to
Prvý
answer
otázok,
today.
ktorý by sme
One
možno
of
chceli dnes priniesť
one
do
of the
našich
questions that
community
we would like to
conversations
answer
je,
today
ako by
is what
mohla
should the
vyzerať pedagógia do
pedagogy
21.
look like
storočia.
in the
Pretože v rámci
21st
nášho
century?
projektu
Because
Európskej
here
únie
in
ide
the
práve o
EU,
to, aby sme
we are
zdokonalovali pedagógiu
we want
pre
to improve the
21.
pedagogy
storočie.
of
A
the
druhou
21st
dôležitou
century. And
otázkou
then
je, či
the
môže
second
ísť táto
thing, second
pedagogika
question is
ruka v ruke s
can the
princípmi
pedagogy for the
kritickej
21st
pedagogiky
century
Márie
actually go hand
Montessori?
in hand
Prečo
with the
by
principles
vedecká
of
pedagógia a
Maria's
pedagogika
Montessori
Márie Montessori má
science-based
byť
pedagogy?
ekvivalentom
So
pre
that's
dnešné
another
dni?
question that we want to
Otázkou,
ask
ktorú si
ourselves, and
dnes
hopefully we'll
zodpovieme.
get the answers to. But to
Preto mám
start
ale na
with,
úvod
I
malé
have
pre vás
a
rozprávanie,
little story
príbeh,
for you,
a síce preto,
because
že ak by
if
sme
we
začali
started
najskôr
speaking about EU
kľúčovými
key
kompetenciami
competencies,
Európskej únie,
then
možno
probably
mnohí z
many
vás
of you
by ani
would not
nevedeli, čo si
even
pod tým
know
predstaviť.
what it is or how to
A
imagine
ak by
that.
sme začali
And
najskôr
if we even
tým, čo sú
started
to
with
STEM
discussing something that
kompetencie,
is called STEM competencies,
povedzte sami,
well, you
čo
can
si
may
pod
have
tým
very
predstavujete
fuzzy idea
a či by ste
what it
mali
is or what
nejakú
it isn't,
predstavu,
but
o čom vlastne
it's
ideme hovoriť.
probably
Ale
not
ja by
very
som chcela
specific.
začať tak,
But
ako
I would
sa
like to
nové veci
start
prinášajú
the
deťom
same
v
way as I
Montessori
speak
triede
to
6 až 12
children
ročných.
in the class of children
Ja
from 6 to
by
12.
som chcela
So I
začať
would like to start with a little
príbehom
story
o tom,
of
ako
how it
všetko
all
vzniklo.
came to being.
A
So,
preto
and that is
by som
why
na chvíľočku
I will like
ukončila
to
prezentáciu
end sharing my
a
screen
ukončila by som
for now.
aj
And I would not show you the
obrázky,
pictures
ktoré
because I want
uvidíte,
to have you in
pretože
front
vás
of me,
chcem mať takto pred
sort of
sebou, ako keby
as
sme
if
boli
you
deti v
were
triede.
children in my class,
Chcem vám
and
teda
I'm going to tell you the
porozprávať
story.
ten príbeh.
So, where these
Kde sa
quote
vlastne
unquote
vzali
key
kľúčové
competences of the European
kompetencie
Union,
Európskej únie?
where it all
My to deťom v
how it all
Montessori
came
6
to
až
being.
12 ročných
So we teach our
uvádame v
children
súvislostiach, ktoré
in
pre deti začali
context.
prvý
And
deň
we start
ich
with the
prvého
very
školského
first
roka,
day at
keď
their
vstúpili do základnej
education.
školy.
The first day, they learned
Prvý deň
about
sa dozvedeli o tom,
how this
ako
world
vznikol tento svet
emerged,
a na
and
akých
what are
zákonoch
the physical
fyzikálnych a chemických
and
boli
chemical
vystavaní.
laws that we are based
Dozvedeli
on.
sa niečo
They
o
learn
pevných,
something
vápnicných a plynných látkach
about
a o
liquids,
tom, ako sa postupne
about
vybudovali
solids,
pevniny,
and
voda
stuff like
a
that, and
stúpanie našej
how
planéte.
everything
Začínali by ste
how
príbeh
everything
o
started.
kľúčových
So, if you
kompetenciách
were to
Európskej únie
explain
v
the
tomto
key
mieste?
competencies, would you
Aj
start
tomu
there?
hovoríme
Uh,
Montessori prístup.
that would be a Montessori approach.
O pár
But
dní sa
anyway,
deti na
at the
začiatku prvého
beginning
školského roka
uh,
dozvedeli o tom, ako sa
at the
na
beginning
našej
of the
Zemi objavil
Montessori
život
education, just a few
a
days
čím
in,
bola prvá
the
živá
children
ponuka
learn
celkom odlišná
about
od
how the
všetkých
life
ostatných
emerged
bytostí, ktoré
on
niekedy
the earth, and
existovali.
also
Čo to
what it means
vlastne
to be
znamená byť
alive,
živý?
what are the
Aké
laws
mali vtedy zákony, ktoré
that we follow,
dodržiavali? Čo sa
what we are
snažili?
trying to do. And
Prekvapilo sa
surprisingly, they
dozvedeli,
learned
že
then
byť
to be
živý
alive. It doesn't
neznamená
mean
len
only
rozmnožovať sa
to multiply
a niečo
ourselves
príjmať a niečo zo seba
to
dávať,
have an
ale byť
intake and
živý napríklad
outtake, but
znamená
also to
udržiavať na
maintain
našej Zemi
harmony
harmóniu, poriadok.
in our
Deti sa
lives
tiež
and on the
dozvedeli,
globe.
že
And
byť
children
živý
also learn
znamená
that being alive means
spolupracovať,
to collaborate, to
spájať sa s
work with
inými
others.
a spolupracovať.
And
Cez
through
tieto
these
príbehy o
stories
živých bunkách,
about
živých
cells,
rastlinách
about
a
animals, about
živých
plants,
živočíchoch sa
and
deti
then
nakoniec
children
dopracujú k
eventually
príbehu o tom, ako
learn
sa
about
objavila na našej
how a
Zemi
new being emerged
celkom nová
in
bytosť.
on the
Ľudská
globe,
bytosť.
how
A
people
dozvedajú sa,
became what we
čím
are,
je taká
and then
ľudská
they
bytosť
learned
úplne
how come
odlišná
that
od všetkých
the
ostatných
people, that
živých
these new beings
tvorov
were
na našej
very
planéte.
different from all the other beings
Ľudská bytosť
in the
deťom
world,
predstavená
and the
ako
human being is
darovaná.
then
Nie len poháňaná
presented
svojimi potrebami ako všetky
as a
živé tvory, ale aj
gifted
obdarovaná darom.
being. That
A
means
síce darom,
having
ktorý
gifts
rozvinula a má ho
that are
podobný
somewhat
veľmi na
similar to
živočíchy
those of
prírodných,
other
a
animals or
teda
plants.
rozvíjať
For example,
úroveň lásky
to
na tomto
somehow
svete, nejako
the first
rozvíjať
gift
láskavosť,
is
to je prvý
to
zázrak.
share a love and to develop a
Ľudská
love,
bytosť je schopná
uh,
obrovskej lásky.
people
A
are
druhý dar
capable of
ľudskej bytosti
having
je
love
inteligencia.
and loving. And the second gift that we will
Spoluprácavosť,
receive is to have an
predstavivosť,
intelligence
ktorá
and
umožňuje
also
ľudským
to have
tvorom
imagination.
pozrieť sa
That
na
means
to,
to
čo
look
všetko
around
okolo seba
and to
majú
imagine how,
si, ako
if
by
we look
pomocou
around,
toho, čo
how they can
odovzdáva
create
vidiek,
something new,
mohli
something
vytvoriť niečo nové.
imaginable.
No a
And
to by mohli tvoriť,
to
dostali ľudské
create
bytosti
that,
svoje
then
zmyšlienky.
the
A
human
práve
beings
deti
were given the third
prvého
tools,
dňa,
and
kedy
that
sa
is
dozvedali o
the
ľudských
human
bytostiach,
hands.
vnímajú človeka a teda aj samého seba ako tvorcu. Počujete tam niečo
Can you
vedecké
hear
alebo
something scientific in it or
vedecko-technického-inžinierské? Možno sa to
something
tam
of
pre vás už
engineering
trocha
in it? Maybe it's
začína.
starting for you
Možno si
already, and
viete
maybe you can
predstaviť, ako
imagine how
Montessori
Montessori
pedagogika deťom
pedagogics
od počiatku
bring a
prináša
human
človeka
being
ako
as a
tvorcu,
creator
ktorý potrebuje
who
pre svoje
needs
tvorenie
to get to know the
najskôr
world
spoznať
around him
svet
or
okolo
her
seba.
for
Dnes sa
its
ešte povieme o tom,
creation. And today we
prečo
will
práve takýto prístup
talk
označujeme
about why
za
we call
vedecký.
this approach
Spoznať, čo vidím
scientific.
okolo seba,
Get to know
a
what is
potom
around
technicky
me and
vytvárať
then
niečo
create
nové. A
something
vlastne aj inžinierské.
and be of
No a tu boli
engineering.
príbehy
And there were
detí, ktoré povedzme do tohoto
children
dňa by mali za sebou.
who would
Od momentu,
go through
kedy
this. And from the
predstavíme
moment
Montessori
we
triedy deťom
introduce
ľudskú
human
bytosť,
being to our
mám pre vás
children in
jeden tip.
Montessori school,
Úplne
I
všetko,
have a
čo
tip for
chcete,
you.
aby sa vaše
What,
deti vo vašich triedách
whatever
naučili,
you want
môžete
your
napojiť na
children
tento
in
moment.
classroom to learn,
Pretože
you can
akékoľvek
connect
učivo,
to
ktoré
this very
nájdete vo svojich
moment because
osnovách,
any type of
sa
subject
veľmi
can
pravdepodobne dá
most
napojiť buď na
probably
to,
be
že ho nejakí
connected to the
ľudia
fact that
vymysleli,
this
tú
thing
vec,
was invented by
alebo že ho
people,
začali,
or
tú
to the
vec
fact
začali
that
ľudia skúmať.
people started
Čiže všetko, čo
examining
sa chcú
this
deti v triede naučiť,
thing.
môžeme
So
napojiť na
you can
človeka
connect
vynálezcu,
everything to
človeka
a
výskumníka,
human being,
človeka tvorcu,
inventor,
človeka, ktorý
observer,
pozoruje prírodu a
to
ktorý
somebody who wants to
chce niečo
create something
vytvoriť z
from
toho, čo
what
vidí
he
okolo
or
seba.
she has
Tu začnem aj ja svoj
observed or
príbeh.
invented. And here I'm
Ak
starting
si teda
my
predstavte
story.
tie
Imagine
ľudské
those
bytosti,
human
ako
beings,
tvorili
how they
tento
were
svet, ako
creating the world,
pretvárali
how they were
prírodu
transforming
postupne pre
nature for
svoje
their
potreby,
needs, how they
ako
were
využívali
using their
svoju schopnosť
capacity to
milovať,
love,
svoju
their
schopnosť tvoriť
capacity to
to, čo im
create
inteligencia ponúkne ako
from
predstava.
something that is offered to
A
them as an
predstavujte si tie, že tie
imagination. And
ľudské
imagine
bytosti
that those human beings
boli vlastne
were
niekedy aj
sometime
rodičmi
also
detí,
parents to
ktoré chceli niečo
children
naučiť.
whom they
Tento
wanted to
príbeh som
teach
si ja pre vás
something. And I
vymyslela,
have come up with
aby
this
som vám
story in order
priblížila niečo
to
nové. Chcem vám
talk
porozprávať o tom,
to
kde sa
you
vzali
about
kľúčové
where have
kompetencie
those
vo
key
vzdelávaní.
competencies
Prví
come
učitelia
around. The
spomedzi
first
vami boli
teachers
možno rodičia,
probably
ktorí
were
učili svoje deti, ako
parents who were
žiť.
teaching their children
Alebo
how
prví
to live,
učitelia
or the
mohli byť
first teachers
odborníci,
were
ktorí chceli
experts who wanted
mladých
to
alebo
teach
deti
young people
naučiť
or
niečo
children
špeciálne,
something
čo oni
special
vedeli.
they know. And for
Asi
a
veľmi
long
dlhým ľuďom
time, it was
stačilo to,
enough
aby
for
sa deti
children to
učili od
learn
svojich
from their
najbližších,
parents
od
or
svojich
from their
rodičov alebo
significant
najbližších odborníkov.
adults.
Ale
But
predstavte
imagine
si,
how
ako
the
sa
world
postupne
has
svet
been
menil,
changing and
ako
how the
dospelí
adults were
zisťovali,
realizing
že
that the
svet sa
world
mení
is
tak
changing
rýchlo,
so fast
že je
that
veľmi
it's so
náročné
difficult to
predvídať,
basically
na čo vlastne
predict
potrebujú
for
byť tie deti
what their
pripravené.
children need to be ready. And since
A keďže sa
everything
všetko
was
zrýchľovalo a
getting faster
zrýchľovalo
and
a
faster,
poznatkov
and
bolo
there was
stále
an
viac, ľudia
increasing
toho vedeli
amount of
stále viac a
knowledge,
bolo naozaj
it was very
ťažké
difficult to pick
vybrať
from
spomedzi toho
all what was
všetkého, čo je
around, what
toto
is
dôležité,
important,
čo by sme
what
mali
we
deťom
should give
budúcej
to the next
generácii odovzdať.
generations and to children.
Môžete
And
si
now you need
predstaviť,
to
potrebujem teraz
imagine
vašu
a
predstavivosť,
group of children
skupinu detí, na
that
ktoré sa
I'm
pozerám,
looking at
ktorí
and
stoja na
who are
okraji
standing at
krajiny, ktorú by sme
at
mohli
the
nazvať
borderline
krajina
of a
budúcnosti, alebo
country of
tú krajinu môžeme
future
nazvať
or
budúcnosť.
country that is
A
called
my sa na tie
future.
deti
And we
pozeráme
look at
s
those
láskou,
children with
starostlivosťou.
care and love
A
and
chceli by sme im
attention. And
pomôcť,
we would
chceli by
like to
sme im
give
dať
them
to, čo bude pre
something
nich v tej
that will
krajine
be
dôležité.
important for them. But
Ale
imagine those
predstavte si teraz
adults
tých
now
dospelých, ktorým nie je
who
súdené
cannot
do tej krajiny
go
ísť s deťmi.
into this
Ako
country
začali
of
robiť
future.
porady, rôzne
How they
konferencie,
started to
začali sa radiť, čo
talk,
vlastne
how they
pribalíme
started
deťom na cestu
to
do tej novej
look
krajiny.
for advice and like what
Možno
they should
si
give to their
pospomínate na
children
niektorých
for
ľudí, ktorí
this
hrali dôležitú
journey
úlohu
to
v histórii
the country
týchto
of future.
bádateľov
Maybe you
a
will think
pedagógov a
about all those
objaviteľov, ktorí sa
important
snažili
ones
zistiť,
in
čo
the
presne
lives of
deti
the
potrebujú.
adults, and
Možno si spomeniete
maybe you will
na
recall a
nejakého múdreho
wise
človeka, môžem si ho
person with
predstaviť
long
s
beard
dlhou
who
bradou,
once
ktorý
said,
povedal,
Don't give
Nedávajte
everything what
deťom
you know to your
všetko, čo vy
children.
viete.
It's very
Dôležité je
important
vybrať
only to
len
pick
tie
those
podstatné
very
veci.
important things. And maybe you
Možno si
will
spomeniete na
recall a
jednu
very
múdru ženu,
wise
ktorá strávila
woman
celý
that
život
was
pozorovaním
observing
detí
throughout her
a pozerala
whole
na ne s
life,
láskavosťou
and she was
a
looking at
pozerala na
those
ne s veľkou
children with
dôverou
trust
a
and
hovorila,
compassion. And
vyberme
she was saying,
semená
let's pick up
a zasaďme
seeds
ich v
and
správnom
plant them
veku,
in the right age,
ale
but
dajme ich
give
do rúk
them
deťom.
to the hands of
Nechajme deti, aby si
children
pestovali z tých
and
semien
let the
poznania
children
vlastné
grow
rastlinky,
their own plants
pretože si
because they
potrebujú
need to
skúšať,
try, they need to
ako
test
vypestovať
how
z
to
vedomosti
cultivate
skutočný
a
poznatok.
real
A
piece
môžeme
of
si spomeniť na
knowledge
ďalších
from
múdrych ľudí, ktorí
information.
sa
And maybe
pridávali do
you
tejto
will recall
diskusie a
people who
premýšľali nad
were
tým,
joining those
čo by bolo
discussions,
dobre
and they were
deťom do
trying to
budúcnosti
come up
dať.
with
No a
what
teraz
would be
by som
good
chcela
to
opäť
give to
vyzvať
those
vás k tej
children. And now try to
predstavivosti, že
imagine
skúste si predstaviť, že
once
tie
again that
dohady
all
a
those
porady
discussions
a
and
diskusie trvali
negotiations have
dlhé
taken
roky,
long
až sa
years
stalo, že ľudia
until
vynašli jeden koncept.
people came up
Nový
with a new
vzdelávací
educational
koncept.
concept.
Ten koncept
And that
mal kúsok
concept
každého z
had a
týchto múdrych ľudí
piece
v
of
sebe a tento koncept hovoril:
each of those
pripravme pre deti prostredie,
wise
kde
people
sa budú
from.
cítiť
And
bezpečne,
this concept was
kde sa budú cítiť
prepare
slobodne
an environment for
a kde budú
children where
chcieť
they
byť
will
same
feel
sebou a
safe
pracovať na vlastných
and where they
projektoch.
will want
Pripravme
to
do tohoto
work on
prostredia
their
tie
own
dôležité
projects. And
semienka,
let's
ktoré
prepare
budú
those
potrebovať
important
v
seeds they will
budúcnosti,
need
pretože
in
to
the
sú
future
základy
because those are
všetkého nášho
basics of
poznania,
our
úplné
knowledge,
jadro
our
všetkého nášho
what we
poznania.
know. So let
Nechajme
those
tieto deti
children
slobodne,
be
aby si z tých
free
semien
and
postupne
let them
nechávali vyrásť malé
slowly grow
rastlinky,
their
s ktorými sú
own
dobre
plants they
oboznámené,
know very
ktoré
well
už sú vlastne
and
akoby
that are part
taká
of their
súčasť
own
ich vlastnej
personalities.
osobnosti.
And
S takýmito
with those
rastlinkami,
plants,
ktoré si
they will grow
vypestrujú zo
from
semien
those seeds
všetkého
of
poznania,
knowledge.
ktoré my dnes poznáme, sa
The
raz tie deti
children
vyberú
ones
do
will
budúcnosti.
venture into the future.
Ale to, že
But
dostali nielen semienka,
not only they got
ale
seeds,
naučili
but they
sa,
have
ako z
learned
tých
how to
semien
grow
vypestovať
something, how
niečo.
to
To
cultivate
znamená,
something
ako z
from the
nejakého
seed.
jadra
So
poznania
how to
vypestovať vlastný
grow
poznatok.
your own
Naučili
knowledge
sa
from
starať
information, from the
o tie
basic knowledge.
semienka.
And this
V tých deťoch niečo
brought up
vyvolalo.
something in those children. And
Predstavte si,
imagine
že
that
v takomto svete
in
sa
such
deti stávali
world,
kompetentnými.
children were becoming
pocit, že
competent.
všetky
They
tie
had a
semienka im
feeling, and
patria.
they have a feeling
Majú
that they
pocit, že sú
own the
majiteľmi
knowledge of the
poznania
whole world.
celého
And they
tohto
had a
sveta. A
feeling
mali
that they
pocit, že
had
majú
this
to
prepared
pripravené prostredie, to
environment, the
miesto,
place that
ktoré
belongs to
patrí
them,
im a kde môžu tie
and where
semienka, ktoré
they
im tiež
can
patria,
freely get to know
slobodne
those
spoznávať.
seeds that are
A
also
tento
theirs.
pocit,
And
o
this
ktorom
feeling
ten pocit
was
bol
decisive
rozhodujúci
for
pre
whole
celé ďalšie
generations of
generácie
new
nových a
people,
nových ľudí.
because this
Pretože to
was
bol
the
pocit,
feeling that was
ktorý bol výhrou.
a victory.
Bol to
It was a
pocit
feeling of competence.
kompetentnosti.
Can you
Viete si
imagine
predstaviť, keď sa
how it
cítite
feels when
kompetentne?
you feel
Aký je to pocit?
competent? Not only you
Vtedy
have
nie len
knowledge and
máte nejaké
information,
vedomosti, informácie, ale vtedy máte
but you have
schopnosť
a capacity
používať
to
tieto
use this
vedomosti
knowledge
podľa vlastných
according to
potrieb.
your own
Vtedy
needs.
máte schopnosť rôzne tie svoje
And you
vedomosti
can
vyťahnuť vtedy, keď ich potrebujete,
this information
nakomponovať
and knowledge
a
when you
nájsť.
need it and
Máte ich
combine
vo
it
svojom batohu,
how you need it.
ako
And you have
predpestované
all those
rastlinky,
pieces of knowledge and
ktoré viete
information as
použiť presne na to,
pre-cultivated
čo
plants.
sa pred vás
And you can
postará.
use them
Viete ich použiť na to, aby ste sami
in order
prevzali
to
moc
take
nad svojim
agency
životom a tvorili niečo.
and
Stali
become
sa
competent
kompetentnou ľudskou
human
bytosťou.
being. And this
A tento príbeh teda
story
hovorí o tom, že ľudia vynašli
says or
koncept
talks about
tzv. Kľúčových
key
kompetencií. V
competencies.
čom všetkom by sa mali
What
deti cítiť
should
kompetentné?
children
všetko by mali
not
nielen
only
poznať,
know, but
ale aj
should
vedieť
be
to
able to
používať.
use it, and
A
they
chcieť to
should also
používať.
want to use it.
No a o tom koncepte kľúčových
And
kompetencií
we are going to
si
talk
dnes
more
povieme niečo
about
viac.
this concept of key
Vytiahneme si z
competencies,
celého
and we
konceptu
will
kľúčových
take
kompetencií
one of them,
jednu,
one part, and
jednu
we will
časť a o
talk
tej si
more,
porozprávame viac.
dive into the topic. And I have a
Ja mám
presentation,
prezentáciu,
and this
bude
presentation is
pokračovať.
going to continue now.
Kľúčové kompetencie. Už možno
So
teraz
now you
viete,
may know
čo
what
mám na
I'm
mysli.
talking about.
Európskej únie
EU key
znamená, že
competencies. This
ide
means
o
that those are
zozbieranie
collected competencies
kompetencie, ktoré
that
vznikli
were
v Európskej
collected
únii.
in the
Kľúčové
EU.
Určite o nich rozprávajú vo
But
všetkých
definitely
častiach
everybody
sveta.
talks about
My sme si
them
vybrali tento
around the
balíček z
world, and
kľúčových
we have
kompetencií
picked this
Európskej únie,
package.
ktoré si
The
najmúdrejší z
wisest
Európskej
of the
únie zvolili pre
EU
svoju
have
budúcu
chosen
generáciu
those
ako tie
competencies
kľúčové.
as key
Budeme dnes
competencies,
hovoriť o
and we
STEM
are going to talk
kompetenciách.
about STEM competencies. You know that the
Už
key
viete, že kľúčové
competencies
kompetencie
are
sú dôležité preto,
important
že deti
because
dneška
the children
sú
of
dospelými
today are
budúcnosti
adults of
a teda
future.
to budú ľudia, ktorí
And that means
potrebujú
they
byť
will need to be
pripravení na
ready for
budúcnosť,
the
na
21st
21.
century.
storočie.
And they need
Potrebujú
to
si so sebou
have the
niesť
feeling
pocit
of competence.
kompetentnosti
For
napríklad
instance,
v tejto
in
oblasti. Čo to vlastne
STEM.
znamená STEM?
What does it mean?
Ja tu mám
This is an
anglický
English
S
version or
znamená
acronym.
science,
S for science, T for
technológia,
technology, E for engineering, and M for mathematics.
Teraz už možno
And now you
tušíte viac o
probably
tom, v akej
know
oblasti by sme chceli,
where
aby sa
do
deti
we
cítili
want
kompetentné.
our
V
children
slovenčine veda,
to feel competent.
technológia, inžinierstvo a matematika.
We would like to look into what does it mean. You know what we would do in Montessori classroom? How do we approach the new words, new vocabulary in the group of 6 to 12 years? We want to know in Montessori classroom what this new word is saying to us. Every single new word they learn in our classroom, they decipher and they analyze from etymological perspective. So it comes from Latin, and it's totally normal in Montessori classrooms that they come across with Old Greek, Old Latin words in this age group of 6 to 12. And this word actually leads us to something similar in English and also in Slovak, that science means to know. It is the competence to know. In Montessori, we say that I'm walking around the world with my eyes open, and this is actually a scientific competence. To walk around with your eyes open means to know and see. If I want to see, I need to have an information what can be seen in the world. So we are teaching the children to observe, to perceive, and to know what they can see around the world. And I will show it to you on specific things, but just for you to imagine, it's basically as a human being is presented as a creator who first needs to know what is around him in order to be able to create. So in the first week of elementary, we teach our children to distinguish what is alive and what is not. They are learning about the elements, about the substances, and then they will learn about a new life cell. So the first grader on the first day can differentiate what is alive and what is not, and then what is solid, what is liquid, and what is different, and so on. This concept grows, and we offer context. That history is is guiding us through it. And children are learning how to distinguish life and organic and inorganic, and also that we have plants and animals, that we have multi-cell, single cell, and gradually their ability to see around themselves and to differentiate, this skill is growing. If we look into second competence, now the question is why the competence in technology is somehow related to competence in science, because if we talk about a human being to be a creator and that who sees and makes links among things that he or she sees around, we can think that science and technology go hand in hand and cannot be separated, because all scientific inventions can be used by our children to create something. So what does it mean, technology? What they should start doing? Technology comes from Greek, and it leads us to systemic processing of a craft or art. In other words, what we have learned about the word, we need to apply. So human being knows in order to learn something new.
Sí, las cinco siempre gramos. Cinco siempre gramos.
Veronika, speaker turned. Okay, now we are on. When we look at the next competence, engineering, we again can look at the Latin origin of the word. In Slovak, it means talent or cleverness. So again, now we are speaking about. You see how this new competence is not so much different from the previous one, and perhaps you find a link between the two. That means the knowledge, or to know, is closely related to creating a product, and then engineering, that means that I become a master in something. I master something. I become the competent in it. And the last thing, mathematics. Why do you think that the mathematics is related to science, technology, and engineering? And that's because the origin of the word is science of learning. Mathematics means the science of learning. That means it is that part of the package of the key competencies that we wanted to pack for our children so that they can serve them for the future. It shows us or it shows the kids how to look around, how to be aware of their surrounding, and to know what they see around themselves. That means to be able to observe things and to understand what they are seeing. So these are competences that should help them to actually think from early age and to learn how to use what they see around themselves to build something new, how they can actually construct and build stuff so that it works, how they can actually improve upon the existing things, and how they can use their intelligence for that, because the mathematics, the science of learning, gives us many tools that helps us to measure things or to calculate things. So mathematics is a tool, sort of like a hammer or like a knife, because if I want to see something and I want to create something, then very likely I will need to measure something or calculate something or estimate how it would behave in the future. So again, there would be some measurement or calculations or chart production involved. And all of that are the competencies that we separated and put it into a package. And we believe that this is something that would help the children to survive and prosper in the country where we will not be with them anymore. That means in the country of the future. So now perhaps you know a little more of what is meant by STEM and also by competencies. So I'll just like to remind you of the kids that you have in your classrooms, if you are teachers, or at home when you are parents. There are people all around the globe here, and we are thinking like what we want for the children. So we can imagine ourselves as the adults that are standing there next to the adults of the future. We see them today as children, small children, but basically the entire world will be on their shoulder. The future resides on their shoulder. And we can look at them this way, that our responsibility is for them to be able to see, to understand, and to want and be able to change the world around them. So, okay, in this case, what is our responsibility towards those future adults? We, the teachers, when we are giving these children, or when we receive these children in our schools, first we should look at the seeds that we want to give to the children and select only those that we really want to put into their backpacks. Because if we were to just tell them everything that we know, then do you know what they would do? They would just feel overwhelmed, and they would say like, I will not ever be able to use this knowledge. And that is why we were very diligent, and we wanted to select really just key things. And we talked we talked about what they need to pack. So what is it that we should give them? And at the same time, what is something that we don't have to tell them? Perhaps we can allow them to discover things on their own. So what are the essential things that they need to be given? And at the same time, we need to think, or we have to also think about the fact that they will not only need the knowledge, they will also need time to be able to use that knowledge or those seeds to transfer it to something new. That means to grow their own plants. Because only when they take the seeds and they will try to transform it into a new plant, only then they will feel competent. Okay, this is the picture that sort of manifests this of what I was telling you about. That we don't want children to be just sitting around at desks, but rather we want them from early on to take the scenes and pre-plant those plans, so that when they or before they become adults, they already have some experiences. Okay, and now let's look at the environment that we can prepare for those children. What they have in those shelves are the most important seeds. Right now, I'm referring to Montessori school. So imagine that in Montessori schools, we have a concept of materials in which the knowledge is abstracted. That means imagine that the knowledge is there in the shells, and it is prepared for children in such a way that it is in a didactically correct order, so that one material handles a single information or single key, a single seed, without which children could not progress further. So this is the environment in an elementary school, and those materials are linked from one to another. And then when the children go through all the material, then they have very good foundations for the lifelong learning. However, what is important is not only to have all the materials in the shelves, and we just don't want to cram it in their head. This is not how the competence is built. What is important is that children can move freely around the environment, and they can take the seat that they want right now. That means to decide with which schoolmate or friend they want to work on one thing or another, and then also they should be able to decide how they want to plant the new plant. This this image is kind of funny, but I just wanted to show you the variety of things that may happen. And then the volcano at the back. Probably children would not be able to have a regular size volcano in their classroom, but they can at least build a model, a functional model. And they should be able to be put in a position of an inventor, someone who can take multiple seeds, combine them, and then perhaps grow something new. Because, for example, if there is something missing, some keys that is missing in the knowledge of a child or a group of children, then a teacher should assist them and tell them, okay, if you're missing this part or that part, they can help the children to give them on individual basis only the things that children need. Isn't it ingenious? An environment where you would have everything that children need to get all the knowledge structures that would serve them for their entire life, and then everything is processed or turned into just ready-made materials. This is an environment that is absolutely ready for inclusion, for building the competences. So this is an ideal environment for building the feeling of competence, so that they actually feel that all the knowledge is there for them, readily available, and it is up to them to choose what they want. Of course, there are certain limitations to that. We want children to work together. We want them to take care of the environment and to take care about everyone that is in their community and take care of their own needs. But you can imagine that this is also a relief for a teacher to be able to do all of that with children, because a teacher doesn't have to explain stuff anymore, but rather to help children to work together, to build their competences, some other competences that we're not going to talk about today. That means social competences, the competences to understand your own needs, the competence to learn. I'm not going to talk about those competencies today, but teachers have now time to live together with children and to let them experience to actually the real life, the collaboration. And thanks to that, that's because in Montessori schools, Montessori classroom, we have this ready or prepared environment, an environment that is prepared both for children and for teachers. And then the teachers also can choose what they want to work on with the children, and how he or she wants to help the children to build some competence. And what I wanted to show on this picture is that everyone is working on something, their own project, something that they enjoy doing at that moment. So in this concept, we have keys, and then our children move in this environment optimally for 6 years. So that means from first grade to sixth grade. So the seeds that are available or selected seeds are the same for children from the age of from the first grade to the sixth grade, and children then can actually plant those seeds. So, okay, that much about the Montessori environment. Maria Montessori added into that package of various clever insights also another insight, and that is that a child is sort of a different being and in different parts of their development. And I would like to closely look at things that Maria Montessori described for the age of 6 to 12. She called it psychoarithmetics, but that's just a fraction of what we have available in our classes. What it means is that a small child naturally is inclined to learn about math in that age. And then Maria Montessori isolated certain moments that are part of the natural learning. And for every such a moment that naturally happens in natural learning, then she prepared a specific material. And she wrote a book that's called Psycho Arithmetics. And based on that, or this is the basis for designing Montessori classrooms, and this is the environment in which children can prosper and progress. And when children work with this kind of material, well, all kinds of material can be handled with children as young as 6-year-olds. When they work with this material, they can actually go to the next step. So she just built this journey and she put everything to the book, to those shelves. And she did the same thing with the psychogeometry and psychogrammars because children actually study all of that as sort of like a science. So a language is studied by children as something that needs to be analyzed and understood and then used. And so we could speak for long about psychogrammar, psychoarithmetics, psychogeometry, but also psychobiology, psychohistory. These are all like natural ways of learning all these subjects, and she prepared materials for that. What she prepared was something that she called a cosmic education. So it's basically a scientific look at the world when everything is related to everything and all the things are interrelated. When we look at what this pedagogy is built on, that means if we wanted to look at the content of the education, and if you studied this chart closely, then you would find the links between the stories. For example, in the center, you have a child that is 6 to 12 years old. At the beginning, they learned about the universe and then about arrival of life to the planet, arrival of humans, and everything that is related, and then everything that is on the outside picture that was developed by humans to actually cover their needs. That's what I told you about the Montessori approach.
But if you wanted to imagine how to realize this pedagogy, the child needs to stay free. It's not only about what we give to the child, but if we want the child to feel competent and we want the child to develop its competencies and grow and cultivate those plans, is important because for the feeling that they want to do it, they need to feel free. And for children to feel free, they need to be in the environment that is conducive to freedom. And of course, the teacher needs to know the environment as well. It all rises and falls with prepared environment. Let's look into what we can find in Montessori classrooms. What we would like you to imagine are those specific materials that children have in their classrooms, and you can see glasses. This is one experiment the children do on their first day in the first grade. In those glasses, they have ice, water, and air. That's what I was mentioning, that the children need to see and understand that everything unorganic is consists of solid, liquid, and gas. And if they start understanding this, they may move to a cycle of water and try to understand how the cycle works, and that we are not only talking about water, but it's the characteristics of all inorganic substances, that at different times they change from, for instance, from a solid to liquid, and from liquid to gas, etc. So from one story, they can start running to different directions, and that's where the freedom for children starts, and also the art of the teacher. Let the children go their own way. For instance, the first graders start to make experiments. They make notes. And they start creating or building their capacity to observe. Gradually, they get to knowledge that our Earth consists of barysphere, and then different other layers. And then they start studying air. Warm air is rising, and maybe they will start to understand chimney effect, and they will understand how wind actually emerges, and that the warm air is ascending, and then the wind is created, and maybe they will be able to picture global winds at our planet, and they will be able to understand that the warm wind is ascending around the earthquake, and then that the global winds are blowing in certain directions from the central part of the globe. And maybe the children will start examining how water impacts or influences the soil or land, and how the land is influenced by water. At this experiment with erosion, they have a glass basin, and then they put stones into it, and then add some sand onto it, and then they will add water, and they can see and experience something maybe they have experienced during their vacation. That, for instance, they will see this picture, and this very place can be compared to what they have in their little basin, the mutual influence of water and soil, or water and land. This is one of the things we are examining, erosion, and what they can actually examine while learning about those different three types or categories of substance. This little hump was covered by sand, and the children were watering this little piece of soil, and the then the rock is very firmly holding together, and this can remind them of completely different area. And we adults talk this didactical sequence, geography, but the children may detour to biology, what we call biology, and wise teacher let them go. They started by examining erosion, and maybe they can venture to biology because they may recall that when they were examining the roots of the plants, and there was this similar picture and similar experiment when they pulled a plant from a pot, and they have realized that the roots of the plant really hold the soil together, because this is what happens. Soil holds the roots hold the soil together, and maybe they will bring a picture from what we call geography, another picture from area that we call biology. And they will start examining in their own way why the roots are in the soil. What do they take from the soil? What do they need? What the plants need? Who are plants anyway? And they will have their eyes open. And it's up to us to guide them through the process and help them understand what they are learning, what am I coming up with, and what do I want to learn. And then what may happen is that the children will start thinking, okay, that the roots hold water, and water holds minerals. And how come that the minerals are in water? And maybe they will start to make dilutions, and they will examine what kind of minerals can be found in the water and in roots, and what kind of minerals the plants need for their life. And we will start learning something about plants, that the plants need to be anchored in water, and that roots are very important for every single plant. And this is the moment where in Montessori pedagogics we combine knowledge with emotion, because the feeling of competence doesn't only come from my knowledge, but also from the fact that I live in a good world where things are working and I am able to contribute. And the fact that we want to help each other is discovered by children at biology, that, for instance, through the fact that the roots help the plant to stand up and give the plant nutrition. So it's combination of knowledge and emotion, and also building competence. The roots need to somehow fight their way through the rock or around the rock, and kind of disintegrate the rock. Can you imagine that at the end of the roots there are particles that are trying to basically disintegrate the rock in a chemical way? This may really lead the children to different areas, so they can learn about types of roots, transformations of roots. Imagine that roots can transform and take over a different role for the plant. And the children start examining books. And you can see the connection not only with mathematics, but also with language as a tool for your learning. Now we don't need mathematics, but a language tool. Montessori says that a child has two hands, one mathematics and one language, and those hands help the children to discover things. And in this way, they can learn, they can read something in the books. They learn to read with understanding or comprehension, and they can then examine the root or the role of the root in disintegrating rocks. So they have 6 years. They're 6 years old, and they will discover that some roots look like this, and other roots look in different way, that there is one main root and many branches. And of course, we talk science here, we use the words that are used by professionals so that they get acquainted with it. And maybe then, when we talk about roots, they got to the title or to the name of this situation when the roots took over functionality of storing, like carrot. And when children start examining those books, they will get practical experience, that they will start examining different types of vegetables, and they are looking for the information in those books. What kind of type of root is potato, is carrot, and they start systematically classify what they see. And they have a correct classification in those books with understanding, with explanation, sorry, what do they have in front of them. So maybe they will see this, or maybe they will venture to those pictures with text. And we have such pictures about plants, but also about animals. And there are key questions there. Where does it grow? What is their structure? What is their life cycle? And the children will try to pick the right picture and combine it with the right text. And would you believe that in a text that, for instance, if the text is that I am a plant that is 20 to 80 centimeters tall and I have a white flower, and it is a particular type of flowers, a specific type of flower head, you can see how this flower introduced itself. And would you believe that this flower is called carrot? Can you imagine that the journey, how children combine knowledge from different areas? And can you imagine the fact that for 6 years they can walk around those seeds and they feel more and more competent? When they are first graders, they get small insights. As second graders, they understand it better and more. But when they are in the fourth, fifth, or sixth grade, they feel really competent when, for instance, they understand things like this. And I would close my presentation here, although we could be talking for long. We could, for instance, look into how the winds on our planets are influenced by different things when our children experiment with things, and that the land gets warmer sooner and also cooler sooner, and that the global winds are not blowing in equal way throughout our globe and planet. But there are certain seasons or periods, and they combine the dots. And then that they understand that in certain locations that in our world, there are areas in on our globe where the hot air is ascending And then also there are areas of the water areas very heavily influenced by winds, and they combine all those seeds of knowledge and the details of it, and they can get a very clear explanation where there are monsoon seasons or dry seasons at some parts of our globe. So through experiments, they start studying maps, and they actually can interpret things, and that the season change. So this is it.
Okay, so I will stop sharing my screen, and I open the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Veronika, for your beautiful presentation. And now we are open to your questions. You can raise your hand or just unmute yourself and just ask question. If you have any of it, because or you can write down in a chat and we can read aloud your question. Because I would like to ask also, we have one question from Clara, and she asked, what specific materials and activities promote exploration, experimentation, and critical thinking? So this is a question. I can also add that maybe you can share from your wide experience something like specific about especially critical thinking and problem solving, because this is one of the things that we lack today, usually, not in just children education, but also in adult world.
Thank you for the question. Well, as for the critical thinking, indeed, this is something that I also consider as very important. If you imagine that children are given this structure, this knowledge structure and knowledge base, and they think they understand the world, I think, or I understand that this is the basis for critical thinking, because then when they are asked a question or when they hear an opinion, they have something to compare it with. That means they have their own knowledge. Imagine that the Montessori classroom actually is a representation of the entire world, because over time they understand more and more things, and they put it together. They think in context, and then when they hear something new, or when they hear a new opinion, then it comes and they compare it with their knowledge structure. So they are able to actually compare it with what they know. And the second moment, which is very important and very useful, is that we teach children to actually ask key questions. For example, with the picture of the carrot, they have a picture of a carrot. There is a game. It's called Who Am I? And Who am I? And it's all about the plants. And then using these plants, that they can actually build something more complex. For example, if they know the carrot, they know some other plants, and they then learn how to classify it. So they go from detail to complexity. And that is also useful because when they look at the world, they can classify it. For example, if they see a new plant, they say, okay, does it have anything to do with the carrot, or is it something completely different? And they think. So they learn how to think thanks to this kind of education.